Welcome back, WNST. It's House in Baltimore. Baltimore Positive. It's quite a week, quite a weekend. It was quite a Saturday and a Sunday, whether it was Billy Joel and Stevie Nicks in traffic or heading down for game one or game two, or for those who, like me, sort of abstained from a lot of it and watched on television, balls and strikes, footballs and losses. Luke Jones joins us now. He is not going to London. He is going to Dallas, Texas, along with me. We're going to be in Arlington for game 3 on Tuesday night. The Ravens are off to London. We have been through up and down what a horrible mojo weekend it is. We're trying to get it back. Friday, we're going to be doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour with our friends at the Maryland Lottery. I have Ravens scratch-offs to give away. It's been a pretty lucky batch at Coco's as I've seen it lately. Friday, we'll be at Drug City at the Fountain upstairs at the tasting room with our friends at Window Nation, as well as Jiffy Lube Multicare. And then on Sunday, this is a definite for sure, breakfast, and it'll be day one of the American League Championship Series. One way or another is going to happen on Sunday. We're going to be up at Hollywood Casino in Perryville in the morning for breakfast. There is a $30 deal, which is an awesome deal. It's like all you can eat brunch all day long, hang out, enter the games. You get a chance to win a whole bunch of money. More than that, bring the family if you want. It's breakfast time. It's an early game. It's kind of weird. They have awesome TVs there and really, really good food. I'm looking forward to the salmon BLT for breakfast myself. Luke Jones may be joining me Sunday. I don't know. Maybe he'll stay home. It depends on how worn out we are from Arlington this week. And you get a week off from going to Owings Mills and having to deal with John Harbaugh and Lamar and how did we lose to the Steelers and all of that. And I think the fans are going to be okay with that as long as we're in Arlington, Texas there, asking after game 3, how did you do it, Kyle Gibson? 7 2/3 of 3-hit ball against this team, and you threw. I don't know, but game 3 is all that matters in Birdlandia at this point. After all this Ravens talk and all the disappointment of game 1, game 2 was just a complete pitching implosion, and all of our worst nightmares from the summer played out in one really pivotal must-win home game, and now they must win every pitch of every at-bat the rest of the way, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear what they have to do. They have to win Tuesday, or we're writing the obit for this still great 2023 season, but really, really disappointing ending. I mean, they have to find a way to win, and you mentioned Kyle Gibson or Dean Kramer. I don't think, and let's be clear, neither one of those guys are going to pitch into the 7th inning. I mean, you're not going to see that in the postseason. If one of those guys can get you to, say, the 6th inning and you have a lead and then you have a bullpen coming off of an off day, then I think you'd gladly take that. Now you're hoping your offense has scored you runs. They did a much better job of that on Sunday. I mean, they scored 2 runs right off the bat. Aaron Hicks atoned for what turned out to be his bad in the 9th inning of game 1, where he missed the hit and run sign, and which, a lot of people were wondering, hey, Gunnar Henderson, why is he trying to steal? No, he peeked back. You could tell, it was a hit and run, and Brandon Hyde confirmed that on Sunday. But I mean, it just comes down to this. I mean, Grayson Rodriguez, there was so much excitement with the way that he had pitched, and he was outstanding in the second half of the season. This was the Grayson Rodriguez that we saw too much of in the first 2 months of the season, which is why he was sent back to Norfolk. Fastball command wasn't there, 4 walks, even the first inning, bases loaded, he was able to wiggle out of trouble. You're hoping he would settle in.
Well, I want to ask you about that because, you were at the ballpark and I wasn't, right? I mean, I was here watching balls and strikes, and the football game ended with a thud, and it was awful. We've discussed how it really wasn't on in the stadium because they weren't really interested in serving you the last 8 minutes of the Ravens game in the 15-minute lead up to who sang the national anthem for game 2. It wasn't Joan Jett. She had a hell of a seat for game 2, by the way. She did her best to distract the pitching. Thank you, Joan. I mean, I hate myself for loving you, but I mean, JJ Hardy. I mean, so all of this build up in the national anthem and whatever, and the Ravens thud at 3:58 or whatever it was. I mean, it was like right all in that 5-minute period. The place is electric still, but even the announcers, Joe Evans and John Smoltz, said, really different energy here than what we had Saturday at 1:00, right? Or 2:15. There was a rain delay Saturday. The sun had come out. It's game 1. It's here we are. Let's go. Maybe a little different. And then Rodriguez comes out and the bases are loaded and he escapes. And then they score some runs. And by like 4:20, by maybe a plug for my friends at Curio and Foreign Daughter, at 4:20, the place is on fire again, right? Like, I mean, there's a roller coaster of that 30, 40 minutes of
Yeah.
Baltimore sports. There's never been anything like that, I don't think.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I definitely noticed it wasn't as insane going into the game from an energy standpoint, and it was still good. Let's be clear. It's not like it wasn't a morgue either. Let's be honest
Yeah, the Ravens
about
screwed
that.
this up. Let's not us screw
But
this up too, right?
but
Yeah.
there really was. I sensed more of a nervous energy coming off of game one. I think the Ravens losing to the Steelers in the fashion that they did absolutely played a factor. I mentioned in our previous conversation that the crowd was a little more late. It was later arriving. And to be clear, everyone was in their seat for first pitch. But on Saturday, and probably the rain delay factored in as well, I mean, that place was packed 45 minutes before first pitch. I mean, there weren't many empty seats 45 minutes before first pitch, let alone talking about first pitch itself. It was a little more of a later arriving crowd on Sunday because I think people were trying to monitor the football game and everything. So, but you're right. It was not as loud, not as crazy to start. Grayson Rodriguez, bases are loaded. It's a nervous, oh, here we go again. Like we can't fall behind early. Gets out of it. Hicks hits the 2-run single, and it's electric again.
It
But
was a
then,
little bit of a Delman Young vibe
yeah,
for a
yeah.
moment.
I mean, it
Yes.
wasn't
If
right. I
we're
mean,
all
Delman,
looking for the Delman Young moment or that sound or that feeling when there's 48,000 people all in orange, I mean, I don't know that I saw 28 Texas Rangers fans in this day. I mean, like it's unbelievable how provincial and local. Do you never see that at a Yankee Red Sox? I mean, even the Devil Rays bring fans and the Blue Jays bring fans. Like it was an orange out or a blackout, and the hair on the back of your neck, right? When Hicks hits the, I mean, in a way that no other hit in the season is like that. When that happens in a playoff game, a game two, when you need it.
yeah. I mean, and it's a far cry from Delman Young because considering the circumstances of that game against the Tigers 9 years ago, with that being game two and so late, but it was electric. And to your point, there's a pocket of Texas fans to the right of the press box. That is, those
The
are the
family,
families.
yeah.
Right, right. So you hear that, and obviously my proximity to that as a reporter in the press box, you hear that, but you're right. Other than that, it's a sea of orange and black. I mean, it really is. And it was
And that's
so
kind of unprecedented unto itself. I was at 96 and 97. The Yankees had fans.
Yeah.
Indians fans came. I mean, they like literally, I sort of remember it,
Yeah, so I mean, the atmosphere again, was it as good as game one overall? No, but the circumstances were different. There's a nervous energy when you're down 0-1 rather than it just being game one and hey, you're looking for a lead. Uh, at 1 o'clock on Saturday, people were thinking about the Orioles sweeping the Rangers. The fan optimism and all of that. So I mean, but it was so deflating to get that 2-0 lead, and less than 10 minutes later, it's gone. And before you know it, you're losing 5-2. I mean, it's
Five to
rough.
two's bad, but then ball one, ball six,
Yeah,
ball eight, ball 12. I
sure.
mean, like that is the nightmare of all nightmares that I would have been a real
Of
negative jerk to
course.
even talk about around here in July and August and September to say
Yeah.
that's the way it's going to go at home after you've lost game one and a tight one. That game two, your starter's going to implode and your bullpen's going to like completely arson and smoke the place out. And that's really what happened in game two.
Well, and this is what happens when your starter gets knocked out in the second inning. And people, I saw some fans, critiquing Brandon Hyde bringing in pitcher or that pitcher. There's no path when your starter's knocked out in the second inning of a playoff game, and we already know the Orioles are missing the best reliever on the planet in 2023 and Felix Bautista, who wasn't walking through that door at any point during the game, there's no path. That's why I tweeted in the third inning, I think it was. I said, if the Orioles have any shot in this game, they're going to have to score double-digit runs. I mean, that's just, you weren't going to hold the Texas offense, and especially when you can't throw strikes. I mean, to walk 11 batters when you didn't walk 11 batters in a game all season, and you do that in game two of the division series, I mean, you can't have it. I can live with just being beaten, right? home run. Guy is a great, and there were some examples of that. Jonah Heim had a really nice piece of hitting on a 2-strike pitch, and it wasn't a great pitch, but he at least he made it happen, right? Don't walk people. I mean, I saw some people
in October.
right. I mean, don't walk people anytime, but especially in October. I mean, I saw a few people on social media talking about nibbling with Corey Seager. It's like, it's not nibbling when you've walked 11 batters at a game. You just can't throw strikes. And that's just, you can't have that. And you get to a point where we've talked about this bullpen. Without Felix Bautista, they did an admirable job getting to this point. But let's face it, what had been such a great strength for this team for the first 4.5 months, 5 months of the season with Felix Bautista, and then Cano being in, not the ninth inning, but the seventh or eighth inning, and the other guys that we've talked about over the course of the season. What became a great strength became just another part of the team. And again, they had an admirable record without Batista down the stretch. And even look at the bullpen statistically. Yeah, they had during the 17-game stretch in September where they didn't have an off day. Yeah, they wore out. There's no question about that. And they were bad for, that week to 10-day stretch that we all know and we were all fretting about at the time. But overall, the bullpen held up admirably. But from the moment that Batista walked off the mound, we talked about it at that point in time, that was going to hinder their ability to make a deep October run. I mean, it's just the truth. It doesn't mean you can't, but it becomes that much more difficult. So what happens is that put more pressure on Kyle Bradish to go deep in the game on Saturday. Bradish wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it wasn't peak Bradish either. And in the case of Grayson Rodriguez, we saw the bad version of Grayson Rodriguez we saw too often in his first 2 months in the big leagues on Sunday. And when that happens with a bullpen that you've got a bunch of guys, just you fill it. You have a bullpen where you had to fill it out at the bottom. You had Jack Flaherty, Brian Baker, who pitched once in the majors since late July. You have guys like that. Fuji left off the roster because you couldn't trust him. When you're having to rely on guys like that,
he couldn't have been any worse than what we saw on Sunday.
But there was no reason to think he was going to be any better either, and that's the problem, right? I mean, you get to it's great to talk about Cano. Tyler Wells has pitched well. Certainly, Danny Coulomb has had a really good season overall. But when you have to cover 7 1/3 innings with your bullpen after your bullpen threw quite a bit the day before, you're not gonna shut down the Texas Rangers then. So that's why I said at that point in time, I think the Orioles are in trouble unless they find a way to score double-digit runs. And well, Texas they added the insurance run in the ninth inning. They hit double digits, and the Orioles, they kept battling. And look, it's not as though this offense gave up and they made it 11-8, but it wasn't enough. It was too little, too late when you have a pitching staff that can't throw strikes and a bullpen that, let's face it, this isn't even the 2016 or 2014 Orioles bullpen that had Zach Britton in it, Andrew Miller in 14, Darren O'Day in those bullpens, Brad Brock in those bullpens. Those guys, this current bullpen, who would fit into that pecking order in 2014? Cano, maybe Danny Coulomb in a lefty specialist kind of role, but this is just what became a strength, or what was a strength just became another part of the team when they lost Felix Bautista. And if you're Brandon Hyde, there's no path to being able to navigate 7 1/3 innings when your starter gets knocked out in the second inning without your offense scoring a ton of runs. And they scored, but it wasn't enough.
Luke Jones is here. He will be there. I will be there. We will be there in Arlington, Texas for Game 3 on Tuesday night, potential Game 4. Obviously getting back for the birthday celebration this weekend, the game in London. We're going to be at Hollywood Casino in Perryville on Sunday. I'm going to be at Drug City on Friday. I don't know if there'll be a baseball game on Friday night. Let's talk about odds of winning in Texas, right? Let's just talk about Rutschman's bat waking up, Mullen's bat waking up, Aaron Hicks' bat woke up, but decision-making, obviously, and what they did, Henderson got blamed for it in Game 1, sort of figured it all out what happened in that particular circumstance, but I've been optimistic enough to get on a plane that you and I are going to go through this machination to go down there to think that they'll still be playing on Wednesday night somehow. And um, I sort of believe that. I'm maybe it's just I've bought into the team and it's not fanboying. It's just sort of like they've had the moxie, and I know you and I talked about the Rays series and dropping the first two games and Rodriguez being the hammer that
Mm-hmm.
came back out there. Um, by the time people hear this, I guess we'll know if it's Gibson or Kramer. I guess
Right.
it 80% Gibson. It would have been Means. We talked about the gray cloud that came in with John Means not being available. Where are you on the bats waking up? And they did in late innings, and the bats look a lot different against righties than lefties. Bruce Bochy knows that, and I think he's going to look a lot different against their bullpen if you get into it. And if you're the one that gets the 5-2 lead in the fourth inning, and Gibson can get you that far in a 5-2 game in the fourth inning or fifth inning, then you start thinking about, all right, what are the matchups here, Luke? What's a favorable matchup for the Orioles in a 4 2/3 scenario? Tyler Wells? Is it let's just shoot the moon and have Kramer ready, or does Kramer start because Gibson got up the other day? Felt to me like Gibson might have just been throwing. Maybe on the thing, maybe you'll go in and have 18 pitches, but if not, you'll start Tuesday. We might need you if we get back in the game somehow. If they get and I don't want to say they got back in the game on Sunday, but they had a prayer until the bullpen showed up. When it's 5-2, yeah, they're always a walk and a double and a stolen base and a double into the gap and three doubles in a row or a couple of hits away from making up a 2 or 3 run deficit. We've seen that all year. I mean, I wouldn't even feel like on Tuesday night if they're losing 4-3 in the seventh inning that they can't win or they can't get a big hit off of the kid in the bullpen in the ninth inning. I'm not, but that would be a circumstance, right? Where there's 52,000 people or however many this new ball. I haven't been, by the way, there are many ballparks I haven't been to in the world. Like literally, I make it a point of it. Going to a new ballpark with you Tuesday. So I'm a little excited about that. But I think about if they get down 3-2 in the seventh inning and the Rangers start to, the Rangers don't have a spider's web. They would bring that kid in the eighth inning and let him try to end it, right? They would give him 28 pitches in 2 innings if they had a 3-2 lead in the eighth. That's the way Bochy will probably play it. Um, but Bochy's been using these lefties and they can't hit them and the matchups aren't good. And the Orioles feel like they've been like a racehorse on Kentucky Derby Day. They don't like the crowd, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a couple things here. First of all, the lefty thing isn't really that big of a thing. Go look at their numbers in the regular season. They hit left-handed pitching, but it is a different lineup construction because it is a different animal. I think so much of this is driven by Gunnar Henderson's not as good against left-handed pitching. Now he's improved big time against lefties compared to where he was in April and May, but that's still his weakness. And look, he's 22. Like that's not a fatal flaw for him. It's something he has to get better with. Lots of 22-year-olds that even become Hall of Fame hitters struggle from one side of the one arm or the other, right-handed, left-handed, depending on the matchup. So I think it's driven by that, but it also takes Ryan O'Hearn out of play, who has been so big for the middle of their order against right-handed pitching. And even though he's struggled really against right-handed pitching too, I mean Cedric Mullins, he's really struggled. I mean, it's kind of been a lost season for him, if we're being honest. He's had the big moments, the big play in Seattle, hit for the cycle earlier in the year. Mullins was arguably their best player over the first 2 months until he hurt his groin, the original groin injury on Memorial Day. So you do have a few guys in that lineup who have not fared well against left-handed pitching. And again, it does take O'Hearn out of the equation, which I think you're talking about some home run pop there, a guy who hit 300 for a large portion of the season before he did tail off in September. But the bats have to wake up regardless of the matchup, and they're going to see Evaldi in game 3. And I think as much as you think of Evaldi at his best and how tough he can be and how well he pitched against Tampa in the wild card series, it's a guy who's dealt with injuries. He was hurt on the shelf for a good chunk of the season. And when he came back, wasn't necessarily, getting deep into these starts. So I think what the Orioles need to do, which is quite frankly, it's what they actually did against Jordan Montgomery, which was they knocked him out after 4 innings, right? I mean, it's not as though they didn't perform against him. They had 9 hits, they scored 5 runs. They did not allow him to do what he did against Tampa Bay, but when you give up 9 runs over the first 3 innings, it changes the math in terms of what you need to do. So I think it's very simple for what this team has to do to win on Tuesday night, whether it's Kramer or Kyle Gibson. And you made mention, and we mentioned the Grayson Rodriguez third game of the Tampa Bay series, what he was able to do. Keep in mind, what else happened in that game? It wasn't just Grayson pitching really well. The bats jumped all over Tampa Bay, and they built a big lead early, and they were able to run away. And they
Well, that
need to.
definitely feels like it settles Rodriguez down, right?
It's going to settle anyone down, right? I mean, it's easier to pitch when it's 6-2 rather than 2-1 or 1-0, whether you're on the winning or losing side. So I think they've got to find a way to jump Eovaldi, and you hope it's going to be a right-handed pitcher. So maybe that makes a difference there. You should have O'Hearn in the starting lineup. That also will mean Adam Frazier, who I don't understand why they're so fixated on this platoon with him and Westberg. Frazier had a 600 OPS over the last 2 months of the season, but they've got to find a way. They've got to start fast offensively, especially on the road, because as much as we talked about the Camden Yards crowd, that crowd is going to be fired up. Think about it. They have not played a home game since before they lost the AL West. Think how much has transpired for them since the last time they played in Arlington, and now they're going to come home.
They have resuscitated everything about their fan base and giving them a chance to come out and get crazy, right?
Yeah,
literally.
to be one win away from the ALCS after having lost the division to Houston, with kind of choking at the end of the season.
And they've never won a World Series here. We talk about 1983 here. There's some people there to go back to seasons in hell in 1971, 72.
Yeah.
Which is the greatest baseball book I've ever read. So if you have any Rangers affinity here or want to just laugh, go pick Mike Shropshire, best baseball book I've ever read, Seasons in Hell, about the early Rangers. And dude, 54 years later, whatever it's been, I turned 55 this week. They've never won. So there is some relative thirst, and we all know the Cowboys don't win, right? I mean, the Stars and the Mavericks have won, so, and they haven't. So, Dirk Nowitzki's the biggest star in the history of Dallas, right? Not at all, but he won most recently by far, right? Him and Aikman.
Yeah. I mean, you have a Rangers team that, hey, they got to a couple World Series not that terribly long ago, but they haven't been able to break through. So, I mean, that's why I said it's of the utmost importance for the Orioles. And I understand, I'm not saying you have to put up a 6 spot in the first inning, although certainly Brandon Hyde and the Orioles would take that. But get an early lead, gives you a chance to exhale and say, okay, big crowd, we're playing on the road. We played well on the road all year long. I mean, go look. I mean, they had 50 plus road wins. I mean, not many teams can say that. Even some of the great teams don't fare that. Even World Series champions didn't fare as well.
We can make a case. I'd make a case for the Orioles winning the next 2 versus the Ravens playing the Steelers 2 more times and having the Steelers win them both. I mean, I would have no. Listen, I would bet a few bucks at a decent odd this week that on Friday I'll be at Drug City and the season could be alive. It's not crazy they can go win 2 games in Texas. It really isn't.
It's baseball. I mean, in the same way that it was never crazy that the Texas Rangers could win 2 in Baltimore. It's baseball, and I'm not trying to be flippant about it. I'm not trying to be dismissive about it, but that's where it's so important to just go there, start fast. If you can get a 2-0 lead in the first inning before Dean Kramer or Kyle Gibson even take the hill in the bottom of the first, I think that makes everyone feel better. You're coming off of an off day, so the bullpen, as much as they did work in games 1 and 2, they still have an off day, and it's not like they extended anyone that is of real consequence. Jack Flaherty, he's their long man in the bullpen. I mean, that's why he pitched on Sunday, because they're down 9-2 or whatever it was when he entered. So, but you need to start fast.
Ball 1 and ball 2.
Sure, no question about it. Hey, it's why he didn't start game 1 or game 2. I mean, when they acquired him, they thought he might be starting game 1 or game 2.
How can have Fuji do that? Brings Don Stanhouse back.
But the point is, you need to start fast. Offense, get going. try to put a couple runs on the board before, whether it's Gibson or Kramer in game 3, whoever's out there, get a lead and pitch better than you did in game 2. I mean, my goodness, they can't pitch any worse, right? 11 walks, 11 runs. I mean, that's as low as it gets in terms of pitching for a postseason game. So, and that's what it is. I don't have like this. It's not this complicated formula, right? I mean, how did this team win 101 games? They're pretty darn good, right? I mean, you don't win 101 games by accident. You can sit here and guys like me who are baseball nerds, and you can talk about Pythagorean, your run differential and what your real true win-loss record should have been and all these different things. Regardless of that, they're still a darn good baseball team, and they were great in the regular season. They won 101 games. Remember that. As you travel to Arlington and you have this off day and the workout at the ballpark there, remember that.
I
Remember
have
that.
never
Hey,
felt so blessed as to be on a plane to Texas to watch Orioles
sure.
postseason baseball from a full stadium with their backs against the wall, with a young, talented team that's a 1 seed. Nobody believes they can go win Tuesday and Wednesday.
Go
I'll
see
be the
what
guy that
happens.
I believe they can win. I mean, they need things to go right. They need to play the kind of baseball that they are fully capable of playing, as my mother would say when I got my report card. You're fully capable of performing better than this. So I know
That
they are, in the same way that we're all convinced the Ravens can play a whole lot better than they played on Sunday too, right? That on their best day, the Ravens can be a 13 or 14 win team if they go out and put it all together and catch the ball. And in the case of the Orioles, they did that. They are a 101 win team, to your point. And backs against the wall, they have answered every call until now. Backs
yeah,
against the wall, losing the first 2 games, they've never been swept. Adley Rutschman gets on the, like that all that streaky and all that. Um, that's all on the line Tuesday night. I think that makes it even more delicious,
yeah.
being a person that has been a fan for a long, long time, that this team's always sort of done things the hard way, right?
Sure, sure. And like I said, I mean, this isn't being down 0-3 in a best of 7 where you literally have one team to draw experience from in baseball history, the Red Sox in 0-4. It's 0-2 in a best of 5. Believe me, I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that they're favored. I mean, clearly they're a major underdog now in this series, as they should be when you lose 2 at home to begin the series and you have home field. But it's 0-2. Find a way to win Tuesday night. However it is, jump on Evaldi, Gibson, or Kramer, give you more than you expect. However it happens, get a win. It's that simple. It's not some. It's baseball. Yes, it's everything's magnified and there's pressure, and maybe these young guys aren't quite ready for this. And if that's the case, then they'll be back next year, and we'll talk about the moves they need to make and improvements they need to make. But there's still plenty to love about this baseball team going forward. But you still have an opportunity on Tuesday and Wednesday. If you can win a couple games on the road, which they've done how many times over the course of the 2023 season, you get to come home and play on Friday night in front of your fans. And then guess what? At that point in time, all of the pressure is on the Texas Rangers at that point in time. So, right now, no one thinks, you kind of, the mindset for Brandon Hyde and this team reverts to where it was a year ago or where it was back in April and May, where no one's really believing in you at this point. And, understandably so. They didn't play well on Saturday and Sunday. They didn't hit the ball on Saturday and they didn't pitch on Sunday. They deserve to lose. This series has played out. They deserve to be 0-2. I mean, it's that simple. But you figure out a way to win, and then if you can figure out a way to win again, then it's a coin flip after that. You come home and your crowd's going to be fired up and everyone's going to be believing again, and everyone in Texas then tightens up and says, here we go again. The Rangers, who've never won a World Series, as you pointed out, the pressure's on them. So, there's nothing, there's nothing that terribly complicated about this. I mean, I wish I could tell you that I thought, this matchup here or that matchup there. I mean, the Orioles don't have that bullpen at this point in time. They don't. It's not a horrendous bullpen, but it's, they have their 3 or 4 guys that they trust who are good, but it's certainly not the 2014 bullpen where it was Britton, Miller, O'Day, Brad Brock, Kevin Gosman in a swingman role. I mean, they don't have that depth with this bullpen. So they need their offense to score. and they're going to have to find a way, whether it's Gibson, whether it's Kramer, and you figure one or the other in both these games, right? They're going to have to find a way to certainly have to be much better than Kevin Gausman was, or Kevin Gausman, Grayson Rodriguez was in game 2 to have any shot. I mean, that's the captain obvious statement. If your starter gets knocked out in the second or third inning, then yeah, pack it up. The season's over and they're going to be swept. I mean, that's, it's that simple. Yeah. Jump on them early offensively as they were able to do, in that Tampa series after they dropped the first two. And, at that point, then Kramer or Gibson, get them to the 5th or 6th inning. If you can get the Orioles to the 5th or 6th inning with a lead, then at that point, we'll talk about how you piece it together the rest of the way. But, there is no formula for getting knocked out in the second inning, to navigate for a win. I mean, not against that Texas lineup that, now they add Evan Carter to the mix, who we haven't mentioned, but my goodness, I mean, a guy who no one had even heard of 3 months ago, and you're talking about someone who's been a star for them. And, it's just, it's very, very difficult, if you're going to have to lean on your bullpen that much against this lineup. This bullpen is just not equipped to be that kind of a dominant group without Felix Bautista at the back end.
He is Luke Jones. He is going to be in Arlington, Texas, along with me for as long as it takes. And of course, if there's a game 5 on Friday night, he'll be back for that. Ravens are in London hiding. But they're not going to hide from us. We're going to talk about them. We have talked about them. We'll continue to do that. Can't do them both. I mean, this harkens back to like taking phone calls in the old days. Like, I don't know how that would have gone on a Monday. I don't know if people want to talk one or the other. Certainly, both are on everyone's breath, as they were at 1 o'clock on Sunday and 4 o'clock on Sunday, and will be at 9 a.m. on this Sunday. We'll be at Hollywood Casino in Perryville, having some fun watching the Ravens on beautiful televisions, eating great food, the casino, betting legally if you wish to do so, bringing the family by if you just want to have a BLT and eat some French toast with me for breakfast and have some eggs and bacon. I'm going to be doing yes, all the above. And there's money to be won. There's a $30 brunch. You don't have to pay it to come. It's an optional thing if you want to participate in the all you can eat, as well as there's some special play, some special games involved in that, as well as a wing eating competition. I'll be the judge of that, not the wing eater. I'll be the wing watcher on that case. But that's on Sunday morning up at Hollywood Casino in Perryville. Friday, we're going to be doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour, bringing it back after my 55th birthday, which is Saturday. It's also Kiko Garcia's birthday. I can go through John Wood, and I can go through all my birthday people. We all can. Luke just turned 39 for the second time, so he's avoiding birthday talk right now. But I'm celebrating my age and my wisdom that I made it this far. Hopefully the Orioles can make it far enough to have a game 5 on Friday and screw up my plans in Dundalk at Drug City at the Fountain. Maryland Lottery bringing it to you. Our friends at Window Nation, 866-90Nation, with a special buy 2, get 2 free deal all month long for my birthday and Luke's birthday as well as Jiffy Lube Multicare, sponsoring our Maryland Crab Cake Tour, and my birthday party, and our 25th anniversary is brought to you by Curio Wellness. We're going to hear from the Bronfine sisters this week about the cannabis industry and the legalization in the last 60, 80 days of what's going on in the world of that. And they are presenting our 25th anniversary. And I've been really remiss, Luke. I did these countdowns of 23 and 22 and 20. Like, I know what I'm doing, and I wanted to release them. And then I've got orange fever right now. Can't you tell by the way I'm dressed? Luke and I'll get back after. We're going to be in Arlington doing radio for you, as well as everything out of Baltimore Positive and all of our social media channels this week, as we try to keep the orange dream alive. Put me down as a believer. Put me down as a believer there's going to be a Wednesday night. I'm going to argue that there'll be a Wednesday night until there's not. And then once we get to Wednesday, when you and I wake up in this godforsaken place in Texas and have 24 more hours of hell there and go to the ballpark, I will say that there'll be a game Friday. I think when you win Tuesday, you believe you win Wednesday. That's how you get to Friday. I'm just not a believer they're going to get down there and get their ass kicked on Tuesday night. I think this will be an extended stay. I'm going to make that prediction right now. We'll come back. More football, more baseball, more pain and agony, more purple and orange therapy. It's BaltimorePositive.com. Stay with us.